the best small forward from every NBA team. Now I will say that it does get off to a bit of a slow start, but things start to pick up eventually, so don't go anywhere. Number 30. The Thunder and Terrence Ferguson. I'm surprised he stayed in the starting lineup as long as he has, but I guess the Thunder still have faith in his future. 29. The Wizards and Troy Brown. No comment. Then 28 goes to the Pistons for Tony Snell, who's the definition of an average role player. But he does have something in common with Kawhi Leonard. Sadly for him though, it's the fact that he seems also incapable of showing emotions. Cedi Osman takes 27 for the Cavs. And anytime I rank Osman low, a lot of people say he's a lot better than he is, and that he should be ranked higher. And I don't know why he has so many supporters, because to me he's just a solid player at best. The Jazz take 26 for Joe Ingles, and Joe falls down a lot of spots from where he was at last year. I mean, I went back and checked and I ranked him at number 12 last season, because that was when he was Utah's shooter in the starting lineup and played good in his role. But since Bojan has come along, he's doing a lot better in that role, so Joe's been moved to the second unit to be their energy off the bench. Not really doing a great job, only averaging 7 points a game. 25. The Rockets with Daniel House, who's been the guy the Rockets have settled with at small forward after they took years to try and fill that spot. And House is stepping up so far, putting up 12 a game on 44% from 3 right now. Then 24 was going to go to the Blazers for Rodney Hood, but since he just suffered a season-ending injury, and since I already thought Kent Bazemore was going to be a better fit in the starting lineup, Kent Bazemore takes his spot. Miles Bridges takes 23 for the Hornets. And would you look at that, the Hornets not in the number 30 spot for a change. And as you can tell, like I said, the small forward rankings are starting out pretty slow, but it does get better soon. As for Bridges though, he's taken a solid jump in his second season, now averaging 13 and 5 a game. I don't see him ever being a real star or anything, but if he can turn into a 16 or 17 point a game scorer every night, that'd be just what Charlotte needs. And speaking of perfect fits for a team, that brings us to Deandre Hunter at 22 for the Hawks. And Hunter's just the type of player Atlanta needed at small forward. For a 4th overall pick, he has had a bit of a slow start, only putting up 12 points a game, but for the potential lockdown defender that he is, and that the Hawks desperately needed, it's nothing to complain about. I mean, Atlanta was terrible on defense last season, and partly due to the fact that they had and still have no other great defenders. I like what Hunter brings to the table though, and he ranks here for now, but I could definitely see him ranking a lot higher in the future. 21. The Spurs and Bryn Forbes. Alright, so I'll admit I messed up last video. DeMar DeRozan's playing small forward this year, but I'm so used to him being a shooting guard, I put him in that video's rankings without thinking about it, even though he should be in this one. So to compensate for it, the only thing I can do is include Forbes in this video, even though he plays shooting guard. Then moving on, the Bulls take 20 for having Otto Porter. I mean, I don't know what they got going on over there in Chicago. Otto Porter's having one of the worst years of his career, and so is Markkanen, even though both of them were supposed to break out this season. Porter's only averaging 11 points a game in the games he's been healthy for. I mean, he's still a solid defender, which ranks him this high, but they need to find a new coach or do something quick. 19. The Grizzlies and Jay Crowder. And Crowder's another guy that's known for being a great two-way player. It doesn't really make sense why he's still on the Grizzlies at this point, but he has played solid as a starter for them. Then 18 goes to the Warriors and Eric Paschall. And the Warriors are the other team I messed up on when I put Klay Thompson in the shooting guard video without even thinking about it. But it's a minor mistake, and Pascal's playing great as the team's small forward for the year anyways, so he ends up here. And the man's said to be the new version of Draymond Green, and it makes sense why. I mean, he's outplaying Draymond up until this point, and has been one of the most surprising rookies from his draft class. Let's not give him too much credit for now though, because somebody has had to score for the Warriors while everyone's injured. But someone who does deserve a lot of credit is OG Anunoby for the Raptors at 17. Because he got back his starting spot this season after Kawhi left, and he's like a mini version of him. It's clear he's still a young player, but it's also clear how good he can become. I mean, I know it's not sustainable, but we're a 4th of the way into the season and the man's still shooting an incredible 47% from 3. And while the rest of his offensive game isn't there just yet, I got no doubt that it's going to develop in the next couple of years. Someone I'm not too sure about though is Jonathan Isaac at 16 for the Magic. And what makes me skeptical about his future is whether or not he stays in Orlando. Because at this point, I'm convinced the Magic have no idea how to run a team. And it's safe to say that Isaac was pretty disappointing in his first 2 seasons, coming out as a 6th overall pick. But I mean, right now he stepped up and is averaging 13 and 7 while leading the league with almost 3 blocks a game as a small forward. I know he most likely won't keep up that pace, but it's still impressive for now. And I guess there is a small chance of it considering the fact that he's a 6'11 small forward, which also definitely helps him be as good on defense as he has been, which has helped him rank this high. Moving on to number 15 with the Nuggets and Will Barton. And I've been surprised Barton's played as good as he has for the Nuggets for these past few years. He's really turned into a diverse scoring option for them as a starter, currently averaging 15 points a game. And on a team that's a real playoff threat, he's definitely playing good enough to be ranked this high. 14 goes to the Nets and Joe Harris. And Joe's continued to improve since last season. He's a guy that every single NBA team would want on the roster, because as always he can get open and shoot threes at a very high percentage, but he's also come out this season much better at scoring off the drive when teams overplay him at the 3-point line. Of course, he's not the most athletic, so his defense does lack, but his offensive game is really starting to round out and make him the perfect teammate. The next, Harrison Barnes comes in at 13 for the Kings. And Barnes has quietly been having a solid year, and it's what we've learned to expect from him at this point. I really see him as a player that has a role similar to what a prime Rudy Gay had. And it seems like he's been around forever at this point, but he's just now entering his prime. I don't think he'll ever take things to another level, but even without that, he still almost makes it into the top 10. Then 12 goes to Kelly Oubre for the Suns, and I talked about him in my most improved video. He just needed a change of scenery from Washington, and it made a big difference. I mean, they started Otto Porter over him for basically his whole career, and looking at how things turned out, that was definitely the wrong move. Because with no bench role and no Dwight Howard in sight, things are going good for him. And while speaking of Phoenix small forwards, that brings us to the former in TJ Warren for the Pacers at 11, who averaged nearly 20 points a game for the Suns for the past 2 seasons. But he was never taken seriously because he kept getting injured and because he was on the Suns. But now that he's staying healthy and putting up the same numbers on a playoff team, things are different for him and he ranks in just outside of the top 10. Then surprisingly, Marcus Morris ranks in at 10 for the Knicks. And I mean, a couple things. It does show how good Morris has been playing, but it also shows just how weak the small forward rankings are this year. And I don't have a ranking to compare him to for last season, since Morris was playing power forward, which is the position I've always really seen him as. But I will say as small forward so far this year, he's been putting up 18 and 6 on 52% from 3. So those numbers aren't sustainable, but this is looking like the best personal year of his career, and it makes sense given the situation. But he still does deserve this spot. For a large part of his career, I'd say he's been inconsistent. One night he'll give you 30, then the next 2 he'll put up 10 points. But for New York, he's done a good job of avoiding that, and right now he's actually their leading scorer. Number 9, the Bucks and Chris Middleton. And Chris moves down 2 spots from last season where I ranked him at number 7. And not too much needs to be said, he's pretty much played the exact same as last season, and it's disappointing that a dude with a max contract doesn't look like he's gonna develop too much more. But I mean, the Bucks are still winning games, and he's playing his part in that, so I guess you can't complain. And Gordon Hayward takes number 8 for the Celtics. Alright, again, I don't have a ranking for Hayward because Jason Tatum took the small forward spot last season. But before his most recent injury, ever since Hayward reclaimed a starting spot, he was playing like his old self, putting up 19, 7, and 4 a game. And I had doubts we'd ever see him play like that again, but with the help of Kemba he is, and let's hope he goes back to that after this injury. Then we have number 7 in Tobias Harris for the 76ers. And I also don't have a ranking to compare Tobias to, because last year he played power forward. But now with Horford on the team, he's gotten to play small forward, and that's the position I think he fits a lot better in. And while he is still playing great, we might be able to give up on the hopes of him becoming an all-star, at least for now. I mean, he's consistently averaged 18 a game since coming to Philly, after it looked like he was breaking out for the Clippers. And part of the reason he was brought in was for his 43% shooting from 3, but now he shot around 31% from 3 since the trade. Solid fit for Philly, but not developing like he was expected. Then the Wolves have number 6 for Andrew Wiggins, who's still keeping up with his hot start for the most part, with him still averaging 25 a game. Robert Covington ranked in the Wolves spot for small forwards last year, while Wiggins played shooting guard. But I can assure you this is a huge jump from where he would have ranked. There's been a lot of talk that Wiggins won't be able to keep this up, but I got faith. And if he does, the future's once again finally bright for him. But if he doesn't, we could probably move him just outside of the top 10. But speaking of huge improvements, that brings us to number 5 with the Pelicans and Brandon Ingram. And alright, Ingram's the last one we don't have a comparison for because he played with LeBron last year in LA, and that was a big reason he wasn't able to play as good as he has this year. It's nothing against LeBron, but there's a lot of pressure that comes with playing with him. And being able to play with next to none this year on a team that's truly his, especially without Zion on the court, has clearly been huge for his confidence. I mean, he's really playing the same style he was last year, he's just doing it a lot more aggressively. And that brings us to number 4 with the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, who's in the same spot that he was last year. And it's the same thing as always with him. He's a leader on both ends and flat out makes his teams better. He did it with the Wolves and now Miami, who he's helped to the 3rd seed in the East so far compared to last season when they missed the playoffs completely. Sure, the team has more help this year too, but the biggest factor is definitely Butler. Then there's Luka Doncic for the Mavs at number 3, who was ranked in at 8 a season ago. I mean, for even as good as he's played though, there's no way he's making it into the top 2, but top 3 is still phenomenal for the 20-year-old. And by this point, there's no way this is just a fluke. We're a fourth of the way through the year and the man's basically averaging a 30-point per game triple-double, not even to mention leading the Mavericks straight into the playoffs, compared to last year when they had the 7th worst record in the NBA. I mean, I've never seen a player peak in their 2nd season, but really, where could this man go from here? Then the Lakers take number 2 with LeBron James, and he's down 1 spot from the number 1 spot in 2018 and 19. I mean, I have no words. 25 and 11 as a point guard in season 17. I've said it before, and the only thing that's gonna slow this man down is an injury. Otherwise, he's still in MVP talks and is honestly playing some of the best basketball of his career. Then, while he may not be as flashy in the regular season, we still have to give number 1 to Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers. And this is compared to the number 3 spot from last season, where he was just behind Kevin Durant and LeBron James. And I know it may be an unpopular opinion at this point, and I understand why. The Lakers have a better record, and LeBron's averaging better stats across the board. But don't forget so quickly about Leonard in the playoffs. The same thing happens every year, which is why he's never in MVP talks. People downplay him all regular season, and then the playoffs come around, and so do the discussions about him being the best in the league. So I'm keeping him at this number 1 spot. And that's going to complete the list. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't forget to come back for the power forward rankings coming soon.